Sirens pierce the quiet suburban night like razor-sharp blades cutting through velvet darkness, and the flash of red and blue lights spills across the neatly trimmed lawns, trembling in the shifting shadows as uniformed officers swarm the scene, shouting commands that crackle over their radios in breathless bursts, sending nearby onlookers into a hush of horrified awe. But here, in the center of it all, stands Alicia Parker, a 35-year-old black mother of two, trembling under the unyielding spotlight of suspicion, her heart pounding so intensely that she believes the echo of it must be audible to everyone around her, even above the wailing sirens and the frantic exchange of police calls demanding backup and reinforcements, because for reasons she doesn't yet understand, she's the reason they are here, and she's been accused of a crime she can't even begin to fathom. Alicia has always been known around town as warm-hearted patient and ever-smiling a proud mother who juggles a demanding job as a middle school English teacher, with her duties raising her two children, 12-year-old Naomi and 9-year-old James, in a modest but cozy house at the end of Montrose Street where each day she strives to instill in them the same sense of kindness, hard work, and moral decency her own parents taught her. She is tall, with a graceful posture that belies the struggles and triumphs carved into her life. Her skin a warm shade of deep brown that glistens in the setting sun, and her black hair styled in twists that gently frame her face. There's always a gentleness in her eyes, the same gentleness she offers to every student who walks through her classroom door. Kids who see her as the teacher who always listens, always believes, always hopes. And, indeed, Alicia has stood by many children who felt misunderstood alone, or cast aside. Born in a predominantly black neighborhood in the city, Alicia and her family eventually moved to this small suburban town, Elmwood Heights, seeking a more peaceful life for the children, the kind of place where neighbors know one another. Block parties happen every summer, and holiday parades bring the community together. Elmwood Heights was not the most diverse place, but Alicia prided herself on forging connections with people of all backgrounds, bridging differences, and championing the value of education and empathy. Her husband, Christopher, passed away in a car accident 4 years ago, and since then she has been the rock for Naomi and James, working late nights, grading papers, volunteering at the local community center, and still finding time to make homemade pancakes on Saturday mornings because she knows these little family rituals knit them closer together. But right now, none of this matters to the row of stern-faced officers who regard her as if she's a dangerous criminal, an attitude that sends waves of panic and confusion roaring through her. She notices that one of them, a tall, broad-shouldered policeman named Officer Grant, keeps his hand ominously near his holster. Eyes narrow with suspicion, while his partner barks orders at her to remain still, to keep her hands where they can see them, and to explain why she matches the description of someone who allegedly broke into a nearby house. Alicia can only stand there, words tangled at the back of her throat, exhaustion and disbelief draining her strength. She's just returned from the grocery store, the back of her car filled with bags of fresh produce and ingredients for tomorrow's family dinner, when the flashing lights appeared and the menacing circle of officers closed in. For a moment, she wonders if this is some kind of dreadful misunderstanding, a bizarre coincidence that will be cleared up as soon as someone checks her ID or confirms her address. But as the tension in the air thickens, she feels a creeping dread that tells her this might be far worse than a simple mistake. Officer Grant raises his voice. "Keep your hands on the hood of the car, ma'am. We have reason to believe you've been seen trespassing on private property." His tone is sharp, and there is an edge in his eyes that reveals more than his words. an edge Alicia recognizes from the stories her father used to tell her about run-ins with certain officers back in the day. An edge that speaks of prejudice and assumption. Alicia tries to respond calmly, though her voice trembles. I don't understand. I just came from the store. My children are waiting for me at home. I live over on Montrose Street. I'm a teacher. This must be a mistake. She can feel the stares of bystanders gathering on their front lawns, can sense the swirl of emotions in the air. Sympathy, fear, curiosity. And in the crowd, she spots a few of her neighbors. People who have known her for years, stepping forward with concern etched on their faces. But they're hesitant to intervene, uncertain of how the officers might react. She can see the conflict in their eyes as they shift uneasily in the halos of their porch lights, as Alicia stands there pressed against her car, her cheek nearly touching the cold metal of the hood. She hears a few bold voices from the growing crowd. That's Miss Parker, the teacher at Elmwood Middle. Someone calls out, but Alicia isn't sure if the police are listening or even care. Another person says she wouldn't do anything like that. I've known her for years, yet no matter how many pleas ring out from concerned citizens, the sense of threat swirling around Alicia refuses to dissipate. Then, almost out of nowhere, a sleek black car pulls up and out steps. A man wearing a crisp suit, an expression of smug authority etched on his face like a king descending onto his domain. Alicia doesn't know him personally, but she recognizes him from various council meetings around town. He is Mitchell Caldwell, a wealthy real estate developer whose name is plastered on construction signs for new housing developments and rumored to be a man of significant influence with the local police department. Caldwell strides up exchanging a few terse words with Officer Grant, and though Alicia can't hear precisely what they're saying, she can read the disdain in Caldwell's eyes as he turns to her, as if she is nothing more than a nuisance, an unwanted presence on his pristine suburban turf. She hears fragments of conversation. She was trespassing suspicious presence. I'm pressing charges, no matter the excuses. Alicia tries to interject, her voice quivering. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was at the supermarket. I have the receipts in my purse. But Caldwell stares her down, his gaze cool and dismissive. So you say he snaps, but I have multiple witnesses that saw you skulking around the side of my property earlier this evening. You think you can just waltz into someone else's yard. You think you can take what doesn't belong to you. Alicia bristles. I would never. She manages, tears pricking at her eyes. She is humiliated, her dignity crushed by the inference that she is a thief. Her word being challenged by a man whose wealth and power seem to carry automatic credibility. The officers loom in, searching her car, with flashlights rummaging through the neatly packed groceries, rifling through her trunk, scattering tomatoes and lettuce and boxes of cereal, as though they are determined to find anything incriminating. She tries to maintain composure, tries not to let the onrush of fear and anger push her into saying something that will only make the situation worse. In her mind, she hears her mother's voice warning her to keep calm, not to escalate to be polite, but firm to keep her head high. And remember, she has done nothing wrong, but it's difficult to remain composed when your entire existence is being questioned. Your integrity shredded, and your children are likely at home worried sick because you're late. Then she hears Naomi's voice echo in her memory. Mom, you always say to stand up for what's right, even if it's scary. Yes, she's always preached that. But now the reality of standing up, confronting authority, and risking possible escalation petrifies her to the core. She can't fail her children. She thinks she can't let them see her broken or browbeaten. As Officer Grant steps away from the trunk empty-handed, Caldwell shakes his head as though disappointed nothing was found. "Check her pockets," Caldwell demands, glancing at the officer for approval. Alicia feels the hot flush of shame rising in her cheeks, but she holds still as they pat down her cardigan and jeans, rummaging through her purse, sifting through receipts, pens, tissues, until they find nothing resembling stolen property. Still, Caldwell doesn't relent, and he points a finger at Alicia, his voice dripping with condescension. "This is the one, I'm sure of it. She was sneaking around the yard earlier. We can check my security cameras. I'll be pressing charges." Alicia wants to shout that this is madness, that there must be some mistake. Maybe there's another woman who looks like her, or maybe this is an outright fabrication, but she can't fathom why anyone would intentionally frame her. She can't process the cruelty of it all. She can already see the seeds of doubt sprouting in the officer's eyes as Caldwell's influence sways them. She can practically feel a noose tightening around her life. The fragile balance she's worked so hard to maintain, threatening to collapse, because a powerful man has decided to paint her as a criminal. She stands, trembling, tears threatening to spill. But then she feels a spark of defiance remembering the children who depend on her, the students who admire her, the neighbors who know her real character. She forces her voice to be steady. "I am Alicia Parker," she says, meeting Officer Grant's gaze with as much courage as she can muster. "I'm a teacher at Elmwood Middle. I have lived in this town for 8 years. I am a mother of 2, and I have not set foot on Mr. Caldwell's property tonight or any other night without permission. This is a grave mistake." A flicker of uncertainty crosses Grant's face, but Caldwell counters smoothly. Don't be fooled by her performance. This is exactly how they operate. Feigning innocence, pulling out the sympathy card, Alicia's heart wrenches at the word "they," the hateful lumping of her identity with a stereotype. She notices a few more neighbors stepping out of their homes, drawn by the flashing lights and Caldwell's raised voice. She sees Miss Jenkins, an older white woman whose grandchildren Alicia tutors, approaching with a bold expression. Officer Miss Jenkins calls. I was watching from my window. Alicia didn't break into any house. She drove straight home from the store. I even helped her pick out produce. We were there together. Alicia, show them the receipt, dear. Alicia scrambles through her purse, retrieving the long slip of paper. But before she can hand it over, Caldwell scoffs. Oh, she could have made a stop on the way, or paid someone else to do the real break-in. People in these circles know how to hide their tracks. Alicia can hardly believe her ears. The condescending tone, the brazen disregard for truth or logic, stings like an open wound. And suddenly she realizes Caldwell is determined to see her arrested, whether she's guilty or not. She wonders if there is some twisted motive behind his actions, if perhaps he's used to people folding under his power, or if he harbors deep-seated prejudices that feed off humiliating someone he deems beneath him. The officers seem hesitant, searching for direction, but Caldwell is relentless. Pacing around Alicia with an air of aristocratic superiority, proclaiming, "I will be reviewing my security footage, and if I have proof you were on my land, I'll see that you pay for your crimes, Miss Parker." Behind him, Miss Jenkins exclaims, "This is outrageous. She's a pillar of this community, and you're treating her like some thief." But Caldwell just laughs. "Pillar of the community. You say I know exactly what kind of pillar she is. Someone who thinks they can waltz in, gain sympathy, and do as they please." Alicia's eyes well with tears of anger and hurt. yet she refuses to show weakness. She looks around and sees a small wave of concerned faces stepping forward. Parents of her students, neighbors she's shared backyard barbecues with a few co-workers who live in the neighborhood. A man named Robert, whose son, Alicia, taught the previous year, calls out, "We know her. She's done so much for our kids. She wouldn't do anything like this." Others echo the sentiment, and though the police officers appear conflicted, their hands hover near their belts, showing they're not letting their guard down. Caldwell, outraged by the crowd's show of support, sneers. "Maybe she's duped all of you, but I don't buy her act." Tensions are rising, and Alicia fears the moment might escalate into something worse if someone loses their cool. She tries to keep her voice gentle but determined. "Officer, can I call my lawyer? I know my rights." But Caldwell steps forward, overshadowing her with his height and presence. "Oh, so now you're calling a lawyer. Do you see how fast they pull that card?" Alicia bristles but remains quiet. She's terrified, but a growing resolve inside her whispers that no matter how powerful Caldwell is, the truth will prevail if she remains steady. Let her call someone. Miss Jenkins protests. But Caldwell retorts, "Stay out of this, ma'am, or I'll have you obstructing justice." The tension is thick, and the officers keep Alicia pinned in place, though she's done nothing to resist. She tries to breathe, to slow her racing heart. In the corner of her vision, she spots Naomi and James running down the street, having been alerted by a neighbor's call. Their eyes wide with fear, Mom Naomi screams, and Alicia's heart cracks at the sight of her children witnessing this spectacle. She calls back, "Stay back, baby. It's okay, though." She knows nothing is okay about this situation. Officer Grant, finally showing a flicker of empathy, ushers the kids away from the immediate scene, telling them to remain on the sidewalk, and Alicia's tears threaten to spill over again. Furious that her children have to see their mother treated like a criminal, confused about why the neighbors they trust are now in a standoff with the police. The night air buzzes with electricity, the hush of uncertain onlookers occasionally broken by Caldwell's cold instructions and the crackle of radio static. Then, in a twist Alicia doesn't see coming, Caldwell pulls out his cell phone and calls someone, presumably demanding they check the footage from his security system. "Yes, get the cameras queued up. I'll have an officer escort me back to the estate," he says with a sneer, eyeing Alicia. "We'll see if your innocent story holds up." Alicia can only swallow back her anger and hurt powerless in this moment, pinned by the glare of suspicion and the threat of force. The crowd, meanwhile, grows thicker, and some are starting to voice their outrage more openly. She hears fragments. "This isn't right. That's Alicia Parker. Why would she break into Caldwell's house? He's targeting her because she's black." "We need to do something," swirling in the background. Voices of people who believe in her, who know her. Moments later, Caldwell snaps his fingers at Officer Grant. "I want her taken in for questioning. At least hold her until we can confirm or deny her alibi." The phrase "taken in for questioning" makes Alicia's stomach churn. She envisions being separated from her children, locked in a holding cell, her entire reputation soiled by this monstrous lie. She can't allow it. "I haven't done anything." She protests softly, her voice shaking. "There's no probable cause to arrest me. You found nothing in my car. I have receipts and alibi. My neighbor was with me. This is harassment." Caldwell's lips curl into a sneer. "Probable cause, I have the right to protect my property from trespassers and thieves." That's when a group of Alicia's supporters' neighbors, parents, a few off-duty teachers begin stepping closer, almost forming a protective semicircle around her. "You are the one trespassing on decency." Caldwell says Robert. His voice rising in anger. Officer Grant shouts. Everyone step back, but the group stands firm. For an instant, Alicia fears the confrontation will erupt into chaos. But then Miss Jenkins steps forward, raising her hands in a peaceful gesture and says, Officers, Alicia is not a threat. Let her call her lawyer. Let's do this by the book. You have no reason to hold her. The officers exchange looks. Caldwell is fuming, practically shaking with anger. Not used to being challenged so openly. She's not going anywhere, Caldwell snaps, but Miss Jenkins insists. What if we have the phone call right here so she can get legal representation on the line? Officer Grant hesitates, looks to Caldwell, who glares but says nothing. Then the officer finally relents. All right, but any sudden moves and I'll have you in cuffs. Understood. Alicia nods, forcing herself to remain calm, though her fury simmers beneath the surface. She retrieves her phone, mindful of the officer's watchful stare, and dials a number. She calls an old friend from the local civil rights office, a paralegal named Dominic, who has helped her with minor legal questions in the past. Dominic, she whispers urgently, voice trembling, I'm being accused. Caldwell, yes, the police. You need to come right away. Caldwell crosses his arms, glaring at her, then motions for an officer to escort him back to his property so he can review footage. As Caldwell leaves, promising to return with evidence, Alicia is left under the close watch of Officer Grant, who keeps a firm grip on his radio as though she might suddenly bolt away. But she has no intention of running. Her entire life is here under the eyes of her neighbors, her children, the community she has served and loved for years. Time stretches on agonizingly as Dominic rushes over and the small crowd around Alicia grows even larger, fueled by texts and calls about the unfair treatment she's receiving. Soon, other residents pour onto the sidewalks, some in pajamas, others with protest signs hastily scrawled with messages like Justice for Alicia and Stop Racial Profiling. The spark of communal frustration ignited by the prospect of one of their own, a beloved teacher and kind neighbor, being targeted by a man with wealth and influence. Even the local high school kids start gathering, chanting Alicia's name, repeating how she tutored them, how she volunteered as a chaperone on field trips, how she always put others first. The tension has not diminished, but the solidarity energizes Alicia, giving her hope that the truth will surface and that she will not be alone in the battle. After what feels like an eternity, Caldwell returns, escorted by 2 more officers who appear stern and unyielding. Caldwell holds a tablet in his hand, triumphant. I've got it, he announces, drawing the crowd's attention. He taps the screen, and though Alicia can't see it clearly from her position, she hears murmurs from the officers as they watch Caldwell's grin widens. It's clearly someone who looks just like you. Miss Parker, creeping around my backyard, checking doors, looking in windows, wearing a dark hoodie. If that's not you, who is it? Alicia's mind spins. She didn't wear a hoodie. She was wearing a light cardigan tonight. She tries to see the screen, but Caldwell angles it away. We'll let the police interpret it. He snaps. Officer Grant looks carefully at the screen, furrows his brow. It's not very clear, the lighting is bad, he mutters. Caldwell is undeterred. Bad lighting or not. I know who I saw. I have some more footage from earlier in the day that shows her car driving past my house several times. No doubt, casing the place. Alicia's stomach lurches. She did pass Caldwell's street earlier that day. She recalls picking up her children from a friend's house nearby, but that doesn't mean she was casing anything. Caldwell continues. Arrest her officer. We have enough to move forward. She can sort this out in court. Alicia's pulse pounds and she clutches her phone, gazing at Dominic, who has just arrived. Dominic steps forward. Wait a minute. No one is arresting anybody unless there's clear evidence. Let me see that footage. My name is Dominic Martinez, paralegal for the Elmwood Civil Rights Coalition. I am here representing Ms. Parker. The officers look uncertain, shifting their weight, but Caldwell bristles. You have no authority to see this. You're not a lawyer, just a Dominic stands firm, unwavering. I have enough authority to advise my client, and if you want to proceed with an arrest on such flimsy grounds, be prepared for a lawsuit, Mr. Caldwell. The air crackles again, and for a second Alicia wonders if Caldwell will physically lash out, so intense is his rage. But then Caldwell sneers, flips the tablet around for Dominic to view and says, "Go ahead, see for yourself." Dominic watches intently with Alicia peering over his shoulder. The figure in the footage is indeed a woman with a similar build to Alicia, wearing a hoodie. The resolution is poor, but Alicia can see that the timestamp is from earlier that night. A pang of fear grips her. Could someone be trying to frame her? She sees the vague silhouette of a car that might resemble hers cruising down the street. Dominic narrows his eyes. The license plate isn't visible. The face isn't visible. Caldwell shrugs. Close enough for me to press charges. Alicia feels tears burning her eyes. This is beyond insane. She wishes there was some other evidence, something that would prove once and for all that this is not her. And then she remembers the grocery store security cameras, and wonders if maybe the store's footage or Miss Jenkins's testimony could confirm her whereabouts at the exact moment the trespass occurred. She glances desperately at Dominic, who picks up on her unspoken thought. "Officer, can we confirm the timeline?" Miss Parker was at the grocery store around this time, and Miss Jenkins was with her. There should be store security footage that can verify she was nowhere near Caldwell's property. The policeman hesitates. That might help clarify some things. Caldwell throws his hands up. So we have to waste more time. Fine, do it. But I'm still pressing charges if that footage doesn't clear her. We can keep her in custody while you run around fetching security tapes. Alicia's supporters grow restless, shouting protests. This is pure harassment. One man yells. "Alicia, we're behind you." A woman calls out. Alicia feels a surge of gratitude for the community's support. Dominic quietly urges Alicia. "Let's go gather that footage now, but we need the officer to accompany us." Officer Grant seems torn between obeying Caldwell's demands and ensuring fairness. Eventually, he signals for a squad car. "All right, Miss Parker, you can ride with me to the store to collect that security footage," he says. "But I'll have to keep you secured." It's protocol. At this, Caldwell smirks triumphantly. That's right. Keep her in cuffs. The crowd gasps in disbelief, and Alicia's children begin sobbing as the officer gingerly takes out handcuffs, turning her around to place them on her wrists. She can't help it. Tears stream down her cheeks now, both from shame and fear. The metallic click of the cuffs is the cruelest sound she's ever heard, like a steel door slamming in her face. As she walks to the squad car, Dominic by her side, the crowd part, some reaching out to offer words of comfort. "Stay strong, Alicia. We know you're innocent. We'll follow the car. Don't worry, Ms. Parker." But Alicia can barely hear them over the roaring in her ears. She can see Caldwell from the corner of her eye, satisfied and cold, practically gleeful at her humiliation. The door slams shut behind her, and she sits in the back of the police cruiser. The barred windows, a grim reminder that in this moment she is treated as a prisoner. They drive to the grocery store, followed by a caravan of cars belonging to her supporters. The tension inside the police vehicle is thick, and Alicia tries to steel herself, remembering her father's advice on how to survive confrontations with the law officer. Grant's voice is quieter now, as though he senses her anguish, but he still remarks, "We have to be sure, Miss Parker. I hope for your sake this is all a misunderstanding." Alicia manages a nod, tears still staining her cheeks. When they arrive at the supermarket, the manager quickly confirms that Alicia was indeed there with Ms. Jenkins, around the time Caldwell's footage supposedly shows someone trespassing. They retrieve the store's security recordings, and Dominic helps Officer Grant comb through them, matching timestamps. The evidence is crystal clear. Alicia's car is visible in the parking lot, and Alicia is seen on camera chatting amiably with Ms. Jenkins at the produce section, an unmistakable timestamp showing that she was at that moment nowhere near Caldwell's property. It is an undeniable alibi. Alicia exhales in overwhelming relief, but her relief is short-lived because she knows that Caldwell's false accusation has already planted seeds of doubt, and the humiliation she has endured might not be so easily erased. Officer Grant radios in, telling dispatch to alert Caldwell that they have contradictory evidence. Moments later, the cuffs are removed and the officer rubs his temple in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Miss Parker," he mumbles. It looks like Caldwell was mistaken. Alicia, her wrists sore, her heart heavy, can only whisper, "Mistaken, he insisted I be arrested. This was more than a mistake, it felt deliberate." The officer sighs, unable or unwilling to offer more. Dominic steps in. "We're not finished." "Officer, there's a bigger issue here. Caldwell singled her out, demanded her arrest, and you complied without real evidence. This is blatant racial profiling and harassment." The officer looks away. "I just do my job. If a prominent member of the community reports a trespasser matching a description, we have to investigate." Dominic retorts, "Yes, but your readiness to treat Alicia as a suspect in spite of multiple witnesses is alarming, and Caldwell's so-called footage is inconclusive at best, deliberately misleading." At worst, Alicia, feeling a mixture of devastation and resolve, stares at her freed wrists. "Can I go home now? My children must be scared out of their minds." Dominic nods, helping her out of the cruiser. The crowd of supporters, which has grown larger outside the supermarket, cheers as they see Alicia step out without handcuffs. They swarm around, offering hugs, condolences, and words of encouragement. "Thank goodness, Alicia, we knew you were innocent." Miss Jenkins cries, embracing her Naomi, and James rushed to her side, tears streaking their young faces. Alicia presses them close, whispering, "I'm all right, babies, I'm all right." But in that embrace, she can't forget the bitter taste of being cuffed, the shame of being pinned against her car, the chilling gaze of Caldwell condemning her without cause. She can sense the wave of anger building among her friends and neighbors who see clearly that a grave injustice has been done. Word spreads rapidly across social media. More people outraged by the violation of Alicia's rights gather in front of Caldwell's opulent mansion, carrying signs and chanting for accountability, their voices echoing through the otherwise peaceful neighborhood. And so begins an unexpected groundswell of communal protest with Alicia's reputation, defended by the very citizens who have seen her dedication and compassion firsthand. Banners reading, "Stop harassing our teachers and justice for Alicia Parker," flap in the evening breeze. Cars line the street, people, exchanging stories of all the times Alicia helped their kids, or volunteered at the soup kitchen, or supported a local fundraiser. There is a sense of righteous anger fueling the protest, an outcry against the casual cruelty Caldwell displayed, and the readiness of the authorities to go along with his accusations. Meanwhile, Alicia, still trembling from the ordeal, sits quietly on her sofa at home with Naomi and James tucked beside her, their arms wrapped around her waist as Dominic paces the living room, trying to figure out how best to address the situation legally. "He slandered you, Alicia," Dominic insists. "He singled you out, made public accusations without proof, and had you detained. We can file a civil suit." Alicia rubs her temples, feeling the weight of exhaustion. "I don't want a prolonged battle in court if I can avoid it, Dominic. I want him to admit he was wrong to apologize and to ensure no one else has to endure what I did tonight." Dominic nods, his gaze softening. "I understand, but men like Caldwell don't back down easily. He's used to throwing his weight around and getting his way. You might need the force of law behind you to make him see reason." Alicia glances at her children, who are still shaken. "I also have to think about Naomi and James. This kind of fight could drag on, overshadow everything, and I don't want them to live in constant tension." Dominic kneels beside her. "What about your dignity, Alicia? You are a respected teacher, a mother, a woman with integrity. He tried to rip that away from you tonight. If we don't stand up now, he might do this again to somebody else." Alicia sighs, tears welling again. She can't deny the truth in Dominic's words. Just then there's a commotion outside her house. She peeks through the window to find a wave of neighbors holding candles forming a vigil on her front lawn. A peaceful demonstration of solidarity. Miss Jenkins, Robert, and many others from earlier, now flanked by dozens more, begin singing a gentle hymn of unity, calling for justice. Alicia's chest tightens at the sight of such support. She steps outside, enveloped in their warmth, and though she feels an overwhelming sense of gratitude, there's a determined edge in her voice when she speaks. "Friends, thank you for standing by me." She calls out, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'm just a mother trying to raise her kids and do some good as a teacher. I never wanted a fight, but it seems one has come to my doorstep. Tonight, I'm asking for your help. Let's show this town what real justice looks like. Let's show them what it means to defend the dignity of every person, regardless of their skin color, their background, or how deep their pockets are." The crowd answers with thunderous applause and cheers. Their voices reverberate through the night, sending a clear message to Caldwell and anyone else who might question Alicia's place in this community. Over the following days, the protest swells into a movement that sweeps across Elmwood Heights high school students. Coordinate rallies, local businesses put up signs in their windows. Supporting Alicia parents write letters to the editor of the town newspaper condemning Caldwell's actions. Even some local politicians, sensing the shifting winds, publicly denounce the false charges. Caldwell, meanwhile, remains defiant, locked away in his mansion, occasionally issuing statements through his lawyer that he merely acted to protect his property, and that Miss Parker should be grateful the police didn't find evidence of wrongdoing, because it could have been worse for her. The arrogance of his statements only fuels the outrage. Each day, Alicia's front yard blossoms into a scene of unity, with townspeople stopping by to offer groceries, flowers, letters of support, and Alicia, still working at the middle school, continues to teach her students. Though now she navigates a whirlwind of media attention and moral support. Naomi and James go to school each morning, receiving hugs and high fives from classmates as though their mother has become a symbol of resilience against injustice. But despite the outward shows of solidarity, Alicia struggles inwardly, haunted by flashbacks of that harrowing night. The echo of the handcuffs clicking around her wrists, the humiliating suspicion that she was some sort of criminal. She wonders if she'll ever feel truly safe again, if her children will ever unsee their mother in such a vulnerable position. One afternoon, as Alicia is leaving the school, she notices a black SUV idling across the street. A pang of anxiety grips her when she sees Caldwell's imposing silhouette behind the wheel. Could he be waiting to confront her? She steels herself, stepping onto the sidewalk. He lowers the window, beckoning her over with a curt gesture. Against her better judgment, she approaches cautiously, checking that there are people nearby in case she needs help. Caldwell's eyes bore into her with the same icy hostility. But there's something else there. A hint of desperation, Miss Parker. He says, his voice devoid of warmth. I suggest you tell your little groupies to stand down. This so-called movement is hurting my reputation, my business interests, and I won't stand for it. You might have proven your innocence, but mark my words. There are plenty of people who think you're milking this for attention. Alicia bristles. I'm not the one who orchestrated a false accusation. Mr. Caldwell, if your reputation is suffering, that's on you. He snorts. You think you're some kind of hero now, just because you teach a bunch of kids and have your neighbors on your side. This is still my town. I hold the power here. People depend on my developments, my investments. You and your rabble-rousing might look good now, but I'm telling you, your 15 minutes of fame will end, and I'll still be here, wealthier and more powerful. Alicia's face flushes with anger, but she forces herself to remain calm. I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm a teacher and a mother who was wrongfully accused by you. The community sees the truth. If you want the protests to stop, consider apologizing, taking responsibility, and working to make amends. Otherwise, this won't end until justice is served. Caldwell's lip curls, and he raises the window, driving off without another word. Alicia stands there, feeling her heart hammer in her chest, but also a fierce certainty that she can't let him intimidate her. That evening, she meets with Dominic and a few local civil rights activists discussing the possibility of a lawsuit. Dominic urges her to follow through, reminding her that Caldwell publicly defamed her and used his influence to get her detained. The activists agree. Alicia, if you don't fight back, he'll keep doing this to people. Says one of them, an elderly pastor who's seen his share of injustices over the decades. Alicia closes her eyes, thinking of her children, of the humiliation, and of the wave of support that has carried her this far. All right, she declares quietly. Let's do this. Let's file the suit over the next week. Word gets out that Alicia Parker is taking legal action against Mitchell Caldwell for defamation, false arrest, and harassment. The day she files the paperwork, the entire town seems to buzz with anticipation. Some folks question whether it's too big a fight for a single mother to take on, especially one with limited resources, while Caldwell's pockets run deeper than any well in Elmwood Heights. But an unexpected twist arrives when Alicia's old college friend, Clarissa Williams, who is now a successful civil rights attorney in a nearby city, hears about the story online. She reaches out to Alicia, offering pro bono representation. I can't sit back and watch you fight this alone, Clarissa tells Alicia over the phone. And if Caldwell thinks he can outspend us, he's wrong. I have colleagues in law firms who'd love to help with discovery and research. We'll give him a run for his money. Alicia feels a rush of relief, tears pricking her eyes again. except this time they're tears of gratitude. "Thank you, Clarissa. You have no idea what this means to me." With Clarissa on board, Alicia's lawsuit gains serious traction. The local paper runs headlines about it. Local TV stations pick up the story, and the protest movement swells once more with renewed vigor, culminating in a massive demonstration in front of the town hall, where Alicia and Clarissa publicly announce the filing of the lawsuit, speaking passionately about the need to stand against discrimination and abuse of power. Cameras flash, reporters shout questions, and Alicia, though nervous, stands tall, remembering her father's words about facing adversity with dignity. She declares, "I stand here not just for myself, but for every person who's ever been silenced, every individual who's been intimidated by the wealthy and powerful, and for every child who deserves to grow up in a community free from prejudice." The crowd's roar of approval resonates off the walls of the old brick building, and Alicia sees tears glistening in the eyes of some supporters. Caldwell, of course, issues statements through his high-paid legal team, calling the lawsuit frivolous, accusing Alicia of seeking a payday and calling the demonstrations mob tactics. But the more he sneers, the more the community rallies around Alicia. So fed up with the repeated arrogance Caldwell has exhibited over the years. Now the lawsuit heads towards a preliminary hearing, and Clarissa works tirelessly, gathering evidence including the grocery store footage testimonies from Ms. Jenkins, statements from the night's crowd, and even records that show Caldwell's repeated hostility toward minority homeowners who sought to purchase properties in his developments. It's a mountain of evidence that paints Caldwell as a man who has used his wealth to muscle out those he deems undesirable. In the midst of these preparations, Alicia navigates her normal life cooking dinner for her children, grading essays, trying to preserve some semblance of routine. She rarely sleeps through the night, haunted by the memory of bright, flashing lights and the cold steel of handcuffs. But she presses on, knowing that the entire town is looking to her as a symbol of what can be accomplished when ordinary people unite against injustice. Finally, the date of the preliminary hearing arrives. Outside the courthouse, a large crowd gathers with signs chanting, "Alicia's name." Caldwell arrives in a sleek black sedan flanked by his legal team, ignoring the jeers of protesters calling out his name in derision. Alicia stands on the courthouse steps, Clarissa beside her, and breathes deeply, leaning on Dominic for moral support. Entering the courtroom is surreal. Alicia sits at the plaintiff's table, Caldwell at the defense table, the tension thick enough to slice with a knife. As the proceedings begin, Caldwell's attorneys argue to have the case dismissed, claiming Alicia has no grounds, no proof of malicious intent. But Clarissa counters with unflinching composure, presenting the timeline, the statements from multiple witnesses, the grocery store footage, and, crucially, highlighting Caldwell's pattern of discriminatory behavior. The judge listens intently, occasionally furrowing her brow as Caldwell's lawyers tried to deflect and deny, but then Clarissa introduces a piece of evidence Alicia hadn't known about: an audio recording from a police scanner the night of the incident, capturing Caldwell's private conversation with an officer on a separate channel, in which Caldwell says, "I don't care if she's innocent or not. I want her gone. She doesn't belong in my neighborhood." The courtroom hushes in shock. Alicia stares at Clarissa, who gives her a reassuring nod. Caldwell sputters his face, turning scarlet. His lead attorney tries to object, but the judge overrules, allowing the audio clip to play in its entirety. The judge's expression hardens as she hears Caldwell's words dripping with malice. It's the twist. Alicia never expected a direct confirmation that Caldwell's motive was pure prejudice. The entire gallery seems to hold its breath. Caldwell's team looks rattled, and Caldwell himself tries to sputter out an excuse about being taken out of context, but it's too late. The judge sets a date for a full trial and denies the motion to dismiss, stating that Miss Parker's complaint raises serious questions about Mr. Caldwell's conduct and intentions that must be heard in full. Outside, the crowd explodes in celebration when they hear the news. Alicia can hardly believe it, tears streaming down her face as Clarissa hugs her. She can see in the distance Caldwell, scowling, the weight of a courtroom battle now resting on his shoulders. In a moment of profound solidarity, the townspeople encircle Alicia, chanting her name, not as some mythical hero, but as a woman who dared to stand up for the truth, who refused to be silenced despite the terror she experienced. Over the following weeks, Caldwell tries to settle out of court. His lawyers approach Clarissa with various offers, sums of money that might tempt someone in Alicia's position to walk away quietly. But Alicia stands firm, stating that while she appreciates attempts at reparation, she will only consider a resolution if Caldwell publicly admits his wrongdoing, apologizes, and agrees to fund a new community initiative aimed at bridging racial divides in Elmwood Heights. At first, Caldwell balks, refusing to bow to a teacher's demands, but the tide of public opinion against him grows fiercer every day. Local businesses backing away from partnerships with him, community leaders condemning his actions. Finally, in a dramatic turn, Caldwell's attorneys schedule a press conference on the courthouse steps. Alicia, Clarissa, Dominic, and the massive crowd gather uncertain of what Caldwell intends to do. Then, before a forest of microphones, Caldwell forces himself to read a prepared statement, his voice trembling with anger and reluctance. He apologizes for the accusation against Alicia. Parker acknowledges that his actions were based on assumptions rather than proof, and announces he will be funding an education and community outreach program in Elmwood Heights to foster racial understanding and support local minority families seeking to buy homes. He halts and stammers, clearly humiliated, but it is done. It is a public admission of guilt, of prejudice, of abuse of power. Alicia stands quietly in the crowd, her heart pounding with a mix of vindication and sorrow. She sees Caldwell diminished, humbled, forced into atonement. She wonders if his apology is sincere or merely tactical, but she also knows this moment is bigger than just him. This is about standing up against injustice, about a community uniting for what's right. After he finishes, the reporters turn to Alicia, pressing her for a statement. The crowd hushes as she steps forward, tears of relief shining in her eyes. "I accept Mr. Caldwell's apology," she says softly, "but let this be a reminder that we must not become complacent. We must continue working to ensure that no one else in Elmwood Heights, or anywhere, is targeted because of their skin color or social status. My hope is that this community becomes an example of healing of neighbors, standing up for neighbors, of true justice prevailing over fear and prejudice." The crowd erupts in cheers and embraces, many people crying openly. Naomi and James rush to their mother's side, beaming with pride, no longer seeing their mother as a victim, but as a powerful testament to courage. Dominic and Clarissa stand beside her triumphant, and Miss Jenkins and Robert appear through the throng, hugging Alicia, telling her how proud they are. In that moment, Alicia feels a profound sense of gratitude, not just for her own vindication, but for the way the town rallied together for the unstoppable force of truth that surged forth when ordinary people refused to turn away. Though scars remain, Alicia still sometimes wakes in a cold sweat, remembering the bright lights and the humiliating search. She has also discovered a wellspring of strength she never knew she possessed. She has learned that even a single mother, a teacher, can hold immense power when backed by the steadfast love and support of a caring community. As the cameras fade and the crowd disperses, a sense of renewed unity settles over Elmwood Heights. Caldwell retreats into the background, his influence waning, and Alicia, who returns to her modest home that night with Naomi and James, stands in the quiet living room, reflecting on everything that's transpired. She gathers her children into her arms, promising them that she will always fight for justice, for dignity, for the inherent worth of every human being. And in their tearful embrace she feels a reassurance that, at least in this moment, love and truth have prevailed over hate and lies. With time, the new community initiative emerges, funded by Caldwell's forced concession. Alicia is invited to help lead a mentorship program for young people of diverse backgrounds, bridging divides, fostering empathy. The entire town, once content in its quiet routines, now bubbles with conversation about race privilege and accountability. And though not every prejudice or societal woe can be erased overnight, Alicia's triumph becomes a lasting symbol that injustice can be challenged, that bigotry can be confronted, and that a single candle of truth can ignite an entire town into blazing solidarity. In the end, as she stands in her classroom one bright afternoon, reading an essay written by one of her students about the power of standing up for what's right, Alicia closes her eyes and breathes a sigh of peace. She recalls that terrifying moment she first felt the cold metal of the handcuffs and contrasts it with the sound of cheering neighbors, the sight of flickering candlelight in front of her home, and the beautiful surge of unity across the community. In the quiet reflection of that moment, Alicia knows she has been tested by adversity, but emerged stronger. The moral stands clear when truth unites a community. Even the mightiest illusions of wealth or power can crumble, and dignity, justice, and love will always have the final word.